Okay. So in this version of the Mother Durga, first of all, let's review what the word Durga means, or how it is typically translated. And so the word Durga with a little d, so not the name, but the word itself, means difficulty or difficulties. And then the name Durga can be translated as that which is difficult to reach. That which is difficult to reach, that which is difficult to access. And so our understanding based on the translation of her name is that the Mother Durga, this is the universal mother of all beings everywhere, of all things manifest, that she's a bit difficult to reach. Why is she difficult to reach? Is it because she's up on some pedestal and she doesn't want to be bothered with us? No, not at all. She's difficult to reach because we ourselves have erected obstacles through our ego, through our tendency to attach and to grasp and to be distracted. We have erected obstacles that we believe separate us from her. But the truth of the Mother Durga is that we cannot be separated from her. In the maternal sense, she's the universal mother, so we came from her, and therefore we are always innately part of her. But also, if you adhere to the concept of oneness, that we are all actually part of that universal flow of consciousness, we're all part of her. We cannot be separated from her. It would be like taking the leg off that chair. You know, you can't if you want that chair to be functional. And that's not the best example, but I think maybe you get the idea, right? You can't take something away from what it is innately part of. It's just not possible. But our minds tell us something else. And the mother says it's fine. She's not worried because she knows the truth. She is the truth. And she also knows that there is an inherent promise to life. There's an inherent promise to embodiment. And that promise is that at some point in time, whether in this life or a future life, at some point in time, we are going to remember our innate unity with her and with all beings everywhere. And in that moment of remembrance, our healing will be complete. And then we will slip down the slippery slope again into forgetfulness, and the healing will start all over again. But for that moment, we will be completely free, because that's what the truth gives to us. It gives us freedom. Freedom from pain and suffering, freedom from delusion, freedom from ignorance, freedom from violence. It frees us. The mother is also called Maya. Maya is translated oftentimes as illusion, or that which is fake, false, or unreal. But Maya is the mother, so it's not actually unreal. It's just not the truth in any totality whatsoever. So when you walk through this world, which has been created by us largely, the cities that have been built, the cars and the medicine and the cultures that have been created, these are all man-made concepts, human-made concepts. And these human-made concepts are as limited as the humans that made them, and are therefore incapable of relating the entirety of truth. It actually, anything that has been brought about by the mind of human beings only reflects what that mind has been capable of in a given moment. So inherently, there's a lot missing there. So when we call Maya illusion, what we're saying is, because of our tendency to attach ourselves, the American way is the only way. Now, I love America, right? American way is not the only way. That is a human-made construct that has limitations as well as great benefits. It's not the entire truth. It was a great idea or concept made by a group of people at a particular point in time that directly reflected their mental condition, their emotional condition, and their lifestyle at that time. So it's extremely limited. Extremely. But we look at it like, or maybe we look at it like, this is the truth. Therein lies the illusion. Therein lies the illusion. When we choose the limited thing over the entirety of truth. Now imagine if every American held true to American values, the values that we so espouse to agree with, and also went into those values, the unity, the freedom, the brother and sisterhood, the community, and brought it to its fullest possible fruition. Imagine what this country and this world would be like then. Boundaries would come down. Hearts would be open. Love would be the guiding principle, not fear. Generosity would be the guiding behavior, not greed. Straightforward honesty would be the tendency and not corruption and lies. So we really, it's helpful for us to know that walking through life. Our worldview is extremely limited and it is not the entire truth. If we wish to know a greater portion of the entire truth, the big truth, then what we need to do is detach ourselves a little bit from our graspings, and maybe a whole lot. We need to detach ourselves and study. Come into a spiritual sadhana and learn about what the Mother suggests could support us along the way of the rediscovery or the remembrance of self and unity. In yoga, we have a concept. It's a very important concept. The Sanskrit word is ahimsa. Ahimsa means non-violence, non-harming. And this concept is so important that it's the first one that Patanjali suggests in the list of ethics that should be followed. It's number 1, ahimsa. Anyone who is interested in yoga, practicing yoga, having a spiritual sadhana, having God consciousness, excelling spiritually, needs to follow 10 precepts, the first of which is non-violence. Without non-violence, the other 9 cannot be attained. Without non-violence, you will find yourself in a state of suffering, stuck there, versus a state of freedom. So if non-violence is so very important, non-harming is so very important, why do we look at this amazing, beautiful depiction of the Mother Goddess here with 8 arms? Why does she have weapons? Why does she have a sword and a mace and a bow and arrow? Why does she have weapons that in our worldview inflict harm? And it's a great question. Because everything is symbolic, first of all. And second of all, because yes, she is the universal mother, she is also a fierce warrior. There's one thing that she does not tolerate, and that thing is ignorance. Ignorance that harms her children. You're her children, I'm her child. The dogs and the cats, the sheep and the cows, the insects, whatever happens to be breathing is her child. The earth is her child. She does not tolerate ignorance harming her children. She will go to battle for love of her children. And anyone in this room who is a mother understands what that means. It's a fierce kind of a love. And it's also a necessary, very necessary kind of a love. We know in Durga's story the story of her incarnation, that the reason that she incarnated was to battle a series of demons who were wreaking havoc on the world and harming her children. Prior to the incarnation into a form, she was formless. The Shakti, the consciousness moving through the universe, constantly creating and releasing and creating and releasing. And then she heard the call of her children who were being harmed and embodied in this form. The demons that she encountered in this great battle, starting with Madhu and Kaitab, their names all represent the lesser qualities of the ego. Madhu and Kaitab, sweetness and bitterness. And the tendency of the ego to have preference and therefore grasp at one thing very greedily and push other things away in great fear or angrily. And that this is our initial tendency, is to grasp or to avoid, to have a preference between that which is sweet and that which is bitter. And that preference will drive us to do the most heinous acts to each other and to ourselves. So in this epic battle of the Mother Durga, the first thing she slays is preference. This is the first thing she brings an end to. She brings an end to greed. She brings an end to self-deprecation. She brings an end to confusion. She brings an end to all these different qualities that are being sent to her by a particular demon named Mahishasura, the buffalo-headed demon, who is representative of the entirety of the ego itself in a very unhealthy state. Everyone in this room has had at least a day, at least a moment in their life where their ego has been completely bent out of shape. Just one. Would you all agree?
Yes.
Anybody in this room never experienced that?
No.
Okay. So now recall one of those moments where your ego was completely bent out of shape. And remember what your behavior was like at that point in time. Were you kind? Were you compassionate? Understanding? Patient? No. You were impatient, frustrated, angry, maybe even violent in physical ways. Did those behaviors serve you well?
No.
Or did you live the next day, week, year, 10 years with that haunting your memory and your thoughts? I wish I never said that. I wish I never behaved that way. What do they think of me? Oh my goodness, they probably still think of me. 10, 20 years later, you'll still be thinking about that. And the more that you think about that and the regrets that you have about that, the less you're going to be thinking about something else. The goodness that you are and are capable of. So the mother comes forward in this beautiful battle, and it is a beautiful battle, because she's showing us, if you wish to have freedom in your mind, then you have to conquer these enemies. You have to. For as long as you give them power and nourishment with your thoughts, your words, your actions, and your intentions, you will be caught in that cycle of suffering. And it's unnecessary suffering. So through this battle, she lays out the work that must be done on the spiritual path in order for us to experience a greater freedom, a greater love, in order for us to have a more complete experience of life itself. None of us are going to get it 100% perfect, right? I mean, unless you're a saint walking through the world, and there's very few of those these days. The other 99.999% of us are going to struggle. We're going to bounce back and forth between the work and, the cultivation of the beautiful virtues within ourselves and the recoiling back into a state of fear, in a state of ignorance. And so it's very important that there be a particular quality that we're focusing ourselves on, and that quality is compassion coupled with empathy. And that we're applying it not only to others who we see in stress and strife, but to ourselves. Because if we're not applying it to ourselves, we cannot really apply it to other people. Not deeply and meaningfully. It'll be superficial at best. Loud will say, oh, I feel so sad for that person, or I feel so bad for that person, or I feel so sorry for that person. But is that compassion when inside what we might be saying is, thank God I'm not that person? That's not compassion. That's superiority. To feel bad and to feel sorry for is pity and judgmentalism. It's an indication that we don't understand the potential within that person to awaken as a result of what they're going through. And we don't understand or accept the potential of the goodness within ourselves to stand witness to what they're going through and for us to grow because of it as well. And we don't understand the potential for generosity to offer what we can in a humble way without ego. To be present, to offer our time, attention, and goodwill. Instead, we kind of move over here and we say, oh, anything you need? I didn't say anything. Oh. And we get completely distracted away because we don't, in our ego, really want to be called upon. We're afraid they're going to ask for something that we're not comfortable giving. But in the heart, we feel, I want to give. But the ego says, it's mine. And the heart says, no, nothing is yours. You don't own anything, and no one owes you anything. And the ego says, I'm conquering the world. The world is mine. Everything is mine if I say it is. And the heart says, no, that's a pretty high cliff to fall off of. You might want to rethink that a little bit. So this is the battle that goes back and forth. It is the battle of preference. It is the battle of greed. It is the battle of confusion. It's the battle of ignorance. It's the battle of the ego. It's the battle of self-deprecation. Self-deprecation, not only when you look in the mirror and don't like what you see and are mean to yourself, but self-deprecation through poor behavior. Every time you refuse to be of service to someone in need, that's self-deprecating because that person is you. That being is you. Every time you step on the spider, you're stepping on yourself. That's kind of like, yeah. Like what? Yes.
Even the cockroaches?
Even the cockroaches and the ticks, yes. All of it. Anything that is viable. Oh my gosh, yes. Anything that you go after violently. And that is one of the differences that we need to be aware of. The mother has these weapons. The mother has the embodiment of a warrior, but her nature is not violent. Her nature is love. The difference between the mother and, let's say, a jihadist is hate. Love, hate. Humbleness, superiority. Unity and necessary protection. Unnecessary violence. And annihilation. These are massive differences. Massive. So we cannot look at the mother and say, well, it's a depiction of violence. It makes no sense. No, it's not a depiction of violence. It's actually a depiction of love. And necessity. Her protecting her children. If we look at each one of the weapons that she's carrying, and sometimes she is depicted with 10 arms, and sometimes some of the weapons, depending upon, nowadays really things are just kind of getting so homogenized, but it used to be depending upon the area of India where you found yourself, what their cultural items of importance were, you might see a little bit of a difference between what she was carrying. But generally, she has a chakra. The wheel, the little spinner that's on her finger kind of looks like a 45 record. Yeah. So that's a chakra. That's an energetic symbol of Dharma. A symbol of Dharma. So what is Dharma? Dharma is duty. Dharma is your duty. Your duty in this life. And we can talk about duty in a very simple manner and say, well, your duty is to be a good person, to be a good spouse or partner, to be a good friend, to be a good employee, to be a good servant, to be of humanity, of all beings everywhere, to be a good person. And we can also say, on a little bit of a more esoteric level, that your dharma in this life is to awaken to the entire truth. The truth of yourself, the truth of divinity. That's also your dharma. Your dharma is not to be a lawyer, a doctor, or a judge, or a bartender. It's not your dharma. Oh, my dharma's calling me. No, your dharma's not calling you. That's a choice you make in life, what career path you're going to follow. What your dharma is to be a good lawyer, an ethical lawyer, a good doctor, an educated doctor who commits no harm. A bartender, I don't know where that one fits in there, but I don't know. Maybe a good bartender who cuts people off when it's time. Right? Yeah, that's what the sword is for, right? Straightforward. So the dharma is the quality with which you bring yourself into whatever it is that you're doing, that you behave virtuously, ethically, and not with violence, not with harm. Then we have the conch shell. And the conch shell is often referred to as symbolic of happiness. But in my mind, I see the conch shell with its relationship to the Bhagavad Gita. At the beginning of the battle, the one who lets everyone know we're beginning blows the conch shell. It's a symbol of beginnings and endings. And it's not just beginnings and endings, but it's knowing when to begin and when to end. So it's very important to know when to begin. And in India, there's a practice called Jyotish. I have a very good friend, her name is Neela. She's a Hindu woman. And she had had a string of not favorable relationships. And she went to her Jyotish and she was like, okay, this has to stop. Like, what am I doing wrong? And he said to her, no relationships for 5 years. This is what the astrology is telling you. This is what your Jyotish is telling you. The planetary alignment, the star alignment, no relationships, no romance, 5 years. If you wait the 5 years, in that 6th year, you will find the person who will treat you the way you seek to be treated. But if you have a relationship in those 5 years, you'll continue to suffer in your relationships the way you're suffering now. So 5 years. 5 years. I met her like about the 3rd year in. We were in a program together. And so she would talk about this emphatically. She's like, I can't wait for 5 years. I can't wait for 5 years. I'm going to wait for it because he told me to, but I can't wait for 5 years. She waited the 5 years. And in the 6th year, she met somebody. And she's in a really happy relationship. Nothing is perfect, but it's not the same kind of relationship that she had had previously, a much healthier relationship. So in India, they put a lot of credence into the practice of Jyotish, of understanding when is the right time to begin, when is the right time to end. That lends itself to your happiness, hence the conch shell relates to happiness. We have the sword. The sword represents discrimination. The sword represents discrimination. Discrimination is knowing the truth of a thing and ending that which needs to end now. Not waiting, not hesitating, not being like, well, maybe it'll get better next week. But there are things that need to end now. There are things that need your clarity, your clear-mindedness. There are things that need to begin now. Especially if your intention truly is to awaken to the innermost self. Then you need to start your practice now. I'm talking to somebody a few weeks ago and they said, I don't know what's going on recently. I'm like, I'm suffering, and I know I've been reading the Bhagavad Gita. I know that's what you're going to say. I've read it, and notice how they went from reading to read. Yeah. So I said, "What's your sadhana look like?" Well, I just don't really understand. No, that's not what I asked you. What does your sadhana look like? Well, I'm not really practicing right now. How does your sadhana benefit you if you're not doing your sadhana? How does I read the Bhagavad Gita in the past work for reading the Bhagavad Gita now and relating it to the issues you're having now? Who cares what you learned in the past? You have to be learning it now so that you can apply it now. So your sadhana is something you have to constantly go back to. That requires discernment. Absolutely. To discern between watching yet another rerun marathon of, The Bachelor or something along those lines, the silliness of the mind, versus turn the television off, get the yoga mat or the meditation cushion out, get on there, do some kind of practice, and do it now. You already have all the tools you need. But we say, well, there's got to be another tool. There's got to be an easier tool. There's got to be a tool that doesn't take an hour. Oh, you don't have to practice for an hour. You can practice for 20 minutes. Oh, great, wonderful. I'll start today. Touch base in a week. How's it going? Oh, I haven't started yet. Is there anything else that you can tell me? Something else you can give me? Something that doesn't take 20 minutes?
Is there a pill for that?
Is there a pill for that? Totally. That's the ignorance of the mind, and we all have it, every single one of us. That's the ignorance of the ego. Looking for the easy way out. Well, can't you just hit me with a bamboo reed and awaken my Shakti? Oh, that's so dangerous. Yeah. It's understood that Shaktipat should not be provided to those who are not engaged in self-awareness. Because delusion, like true mental instability, can occur. And yet we've got people all over the place smacking people with bamboo sticks. You know what I mean. Please don't. Unless it is a true master who is giving that to you, please don't. Because chasing after spirituality is not spirituality. It's an ego game. Chasing after awakening and the power that comes with that is the ego. It's not the intention of the heart. The intention of the heart says, you know what? Of course it would be lovely to be awakened. But right now what is most important is the path. Because you can't get there without going here first. Therein lies a very big secret in yoga. There looks really pretty, but you're here. So be here and do the work of now. And the work of now is the sacred work that will take you there. But if you just try to jump over here to get there without doing the work, then you're just going to find yourself in a deeper level of suffering eventually. Her next is the bow and arrow. She has the bow and arrow. And the bow and arrow is associated with virtuous character. So cultivating those yamas and niyamas, non-violence, non-stealing, truthfulness, non-grasping, economy of energy, contentment, cleanliness, discernment, self-study, and devotion. Traditions have different lists, but they're generally all the same. Don't hurt people and don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt animals. Don't hurt the environment. Don't be greedy. Be generous. Don't be cruel. Be kind. Don't be wishy-washy. Be straightforward. Don't be confused. Be with clarity. Don't be doubtful. Be certain. Don't lead yourself down the dark alley of confusion and doubt and violence. Instead, walk through the meadows of bliss. Very poetical, I know. So virtuous character, cultivating the virtuous character. And because it's a bow and arrow, I used to love watching like those shows on television where at some point, like they had people with talent on there showing their talent. And there'd always be somebody with a bow and arrow and someone with an apple on their head. And I would sit there and be like, I can't watch. I can't watch. But, we love train wrecks, don't we? And I would always be like, I would not stand there with an apple on my head for someone to shoot an arrow, a piercing arrow at. Because the human tendency to be so very concentrated is, in all honesty, a little lacking, And here we're talking about an arrow and your head and an apple. So for me, the bow and arrow represents the ability to draw back that string and to hit the apple, not the head. Always hitting the apple. Always. And never inflicting harm. So clarity, so important. And skill, and one-pointedness, so very important. She also has a lotus. So she's got all these weapons, right? When people look at the weapons, they don't see the lotus, though. She has a lotus, and what does a lotus represent? Purity. A lotus represents purity, being born into the truth, being brought forward into the joy of truth and the freedom of truth. The lotus also represents the human journey. So if you know anything about the way a lotus grows, the seed gets planted down into the muck and the mud of a typically swampy kind of an area. And that kind of an area is not conducive to seeds, to delicate seeds and delicate little baby sprouts, But somehow that seed gets what the nourishment it is that it needs. It sprouts, and that sprout makes it all the way up through the water to the surface where it begins to lay out its leaves. And then a bud emerges. And then the bud opens, and the flower is untouched. by its environment. Now, what is a swamp like? A little stinky, dirty, mucky, muddy, right? And yet here is this beautiful lotus flower with not a stain or a smell other than absolute ambrosia, unaffected by its environment. This is the truth of you. This is the truth of you. You are like a crystal, a clear crystal, which at times looks to take on whatever is in the environment around it. And therefore we're tricked into thinking that we take on what is in the environment around us. But move the crystal. Hold the crystal to the light, and there's nothing but light. You're unaffected in your entire being, in your wholeness. You are unaffected. Your soul is unaffected. You cannot be tainted. Your physical body can be, but you're not your body. Your mind can be, but you're not your mind. Your emotions can be affected, but you're not your emotions. These things have a relationship to you, but they're not the entire truth of you. The entire truth of you is the soul, the spirit of you. And that is unaffected and remains unaffected. That'll be another conversation. So then we come to the mace, which is the club-looking like stick with a big ball on the end of it. And the mace implies both devotion and surrender. And so a mace is a heavy thing. I mean, unless you watch Bollywood movies that were made in like the 1950s, then I'm not sure what they're made out of, but they're kind of fun looking. But they're typically this really huge, decorated head on a stick, and they hit stuff with it. Typically other people if they're in a battle. Yeah. But here, the weight of the mace is how heavy you should be with devotion. The weight of the mace. This thing that is very difficult to pick up, to maneuver, to swing. Your devotion should be so thick, so potent, so full. And so should your surrender. Your devotion and your surrender, like the mace. The Trishula, the trident in the upper corner with the three prongs on it, this is representative of Shiva, first of all. It is a symbol of Shiva. And Shiva is consciousness. So we know that the mace represents, that the trident represents consciousness, represents Shiva and her union with Shiva. But it also represents courage. It represents the ability to be courageous, to be brave. It represents not only the feeling of courageousness, but the ability to act on courage. The ability to do the right thing. So often, we talk to people all the time, and one of the main questions that they have is, I know what the right thing to do is, but I don't know that I can do it because it's a big thing. It's scary. It's not easy. I'm afraid of what people are going to say. They know what the right thing is to do, but they're afraid. So they need to cultivate the courage to do the right thing, despite what people are going to say, despite how people are going to feel or react or any of that. Despite fear, cultivate the courage to take the right action. In right action, there's very little consequence that sticks to you. In truly right action, there is no consequence that sticks to you. But we're humans, so there's always a little bit of attachment there. If we commit an act out of fear, out of ignorance, out of hatred, out of angry violence, there is a karma there that sticks, like super glue, sticks. And if you played with super glue, you know that sticks pretty well. And it's got to be reconciled. This life, next life, 12 lives from now, 1,200 lives from now, it's got to be reconciled. Your soul will not be completely free until that glue is chipped away at and that karma falls off. There are some behaviors that are based in what we would call love, what we would call generosity. There's still attachments there, though, because we don't love people typically unless we want to be loved back. We don't tend to be generous to people. We expect to thank you. So there is an attachment there, but these are still considered to be somewhat higher behaviors. So the glue there is not necessarily super glue. It's more like gorilla glue. Right? Not quite as bad as super glue. Not quite as sticky, but close. Yeah. Yeah, totally. So it's going to stick to you. The consequences of those actions are going to stick to you, and they're going to need to be reconciled in this life, next life, 12 lives, 1,200 lives from now. It has to be reconciled. So you got to chip away that glue through your spiritual sadhana until those behavioral consequences fall away, that karma falls away. Then we have behaviors that are pure generosity, purely selfless, pure love, unexpecting, not attached. And we are quite capable of these things, but we don't practice them very often because we're too easily swayed by fear and expectation. But in those moments where we do behave purely, we love for the sake of love only. We forgive for the sake of forgiveness only. We give for the sake of giving only. We have no expectation, not even a thank you. And we don't go around saying, I gave everything and I didn't even expect a thank you, because that's an attachment. So pure. The consequences of pure actions do not stick to the actor. There's no glue. They fall away immediately. So if you understood the super glue and the gorilla glue to be like bricks and stones, so bricks and stones, and you had a basket on your back, and every time you took an action, either a brick or a stone or air was put into your basket, and you know air doesn't weigh anything. And you knew that the more super glue, the more gorilla glue, the heavier that basket got, the more pure actions, the lighter that basket got. Where would you be compelled to place your behavior? A, B, or C? How many say A, the bricks? How many say B, the stones? How many say C, the air? Okay. So next time I see you,
We'll be invisible.
I expect you to be invisible. I expect your basket to be invisible, to be gone, to be reconciled. Because it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long. Purify your heart. Let all of your actions be based in divine love. Divine love doesn't look and say, oh, by the way, you're doing it all wrong. Therefore, I have the right to hurt you because I love God. BS.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But this is the way that the ego thinks. The ego says, well, wait a minute. If all I'm doing is collecting air, then how am I superior to anybody else? Oh, I got it. I'll use love. I'll say, out of my love for God, I have the right to annihilate you.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Nope. No. Out of my love, I have the right to punish you. No. Nope. That's super glue. Out of my love, I have the right to serve you, but you better serve me back. Nope. That's gorilla glue. Out of my love, I have only the right to serve you. Yes. Yeah. That requires a lot of courage. Yes, Kelly.
If I may, these analogies are fantastic, but what came to mind when you mentioned the glue, if I may add on to that analogy.
Absolutely.
when you use these glues, you can put super glue, gorilla glue onto something and put things together and walk away and they won't hold tight. It's much easier to remove that then. The concept is, in the directions of these glues, right, is that you need to hold things together and then they will adhere. So in the analogy, it's as if you're living impurely. The longer you live impurely,
The longer you're holding.
the longer you're holding that together and the harder it is to peel those things apart and get into the layers. And that's the harder inner work to get and to peel that away. If we can recognize when we pull that glue out and we dab it and we're like, oh, that's not it. That's easier to scrape and put in the trash than, and work through than it would be for that part.
Absolutely. That's beautiful, Kelly. Thank you for that. Yeah. Oh, yay. I'm telling you, next time I see you all.
But you can't do the pure actions hoping.
No.
The point of having air in your basket either.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can't because Swamini told me to, so I have to do this. No, that's super glue. No. Or it's gorilla. It's one of them. Yeah, no, it's just love. It's just love. It's not like, okay, I'm gonna every day for the next year, I'm gonna try it out and see if it works. Nope. The expectation is reward. Yeah, that's the attachment. Can't be reward. Can't be. So therefore, it can't be, well, I've been doing this for a month and a half now. Where's my reward? I'm still suffering.
It's like with the boon, right?
Yeah.
I served you for all my life. Where's my boon?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Carol.
What about when you hear people say, well, you need to forgive that person, it's really for yourself. Am I not doing it for myself? This is just for the sake of doing it. Like if I want to free myself, then I forgive you.
Well, that's a great question. And I guess that one way of answering it is to say that there's levels to everything, just like there's levels to glue, right? So if we forgive someone, so in our very complicated humanness, somebody provides an insult to us in some level, shape, or form, and we say, well, the right thing to do is to forgive them. Because if I forgive them, then I will have the benefit of freedom too. That's a reward. It's still a better act, usually, than holding the grudge. There are moments, you could say, when the grudge is more pure than the forgiveness. You're being honest about how you feel. You're saying, I'm not ready. I recognize that I can't let this go yet, but I'm going to work to not harm that person. That can be more pure than a forced forgiveness. Or at least kind of on the same level. So then somebody does us wrong, they do an insult to us, and we say, well, I have a practice of forgiveness, so I'm going to forgive. I'm going to forgive you for doing that to me. Right? Okay, that's okay. It is, because it's a practice, and it's something that we're not perfect at. But here's the kicker. At some point, through your spiritual sadhana, forgiveness is no longer necessary. Because you recognize, that the person, that their violent behavior, that their insulting behavior has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with their state of being, with their fear, with their anger, with their hate, with their practice of violence, with their incapacity, with their inability to recognize the goodness that exists within their own self. That's what it has to do with. So there is no need for forgiveness because there's been no true insult. But that's really kind of an esoteric practice. That's not something that we can do overnight. And it's not something that we should chase after. It's something that will happen naturally as your practice unfolds itself. You will become more and more resilient to the behavior of others because you'll more and more recognize that their behavior is not about you. It's about them. Well, what about justice? Well, of course. We're here on the earth to follow Dharma. Dharma is duty. Duty is virtue. We have a responsibility to that. We have a responsibility to the truth. But I don't have to take up my activism. Now, mind you, I've been an activist my whole life. I was sharing with some of you that I was a longtime member of PETA and PETA and Greenpeace. I almost said pizza. Of PETA and Greenpeace. It sounds incorrect now. It's like it should be PETA. Longtime member, But there came a moment in time where I recognized that the banner I was waving was a banner of anger. It wasn't a banner of reconciliation. I cared about the animals, absolutely, and I still do. And I'm still very much an activist toward animal rights in my own way. But I don't want that to be from the vehicle of anger. It needs to be from the vehicle of love. If it's from the vehicle of anger, then I am going to work to minimize the pain and suffering of one animal by inflicting it on another. Where does that lead us? So instead, I provide food for animals. I support organizations that treat animals well or that support animals. I don't go to the circus of animals. I don't take part in behaviors that harm animals. Instead, I pay attention to what it is that I'm doing, what I'm buying, and how I'm spending my time. And if I happen to meet somebody who's going to the circus, I don't say, you shouldn't go to that circus. Bad people. You don't want to be a bad person. No. If I meet somebody who's going to the circus, then I leave them alone. If they say to me, I'm going to the circus, would you like to come? There's an invitation. But the invitation isn't to belittle them and make them feel bad. The invitation is for me to be clear in my own intention by saying, thank you so much. I really appreciate the offer. I don't go to the circus because I don't wish to see the animals treated in such a way. But if you ever want to go to the movies or something like that, or if you ever want to go for a walk in the park, let me know. I'd be happy to go. This way, I'm not saying you're bad for going.
I know better than you.
Yeah. How are we time-wise? Oh, we're almost at 11:30. I have time to say the mudras. So you'll see that in this particular one with 8 hands, she has one mudra. She has the Abhaya mudra. Abhaya mudra. So the right hand, palm face forward in front of the right shoulder. The Abhaya mudra is the mudra of fearlessness. Walk through life fearlessly. When the goddess holds this mudra, it's also considered to be the mudra of boons. Boons are gifts, that she gives blessings and gifts to her children. When she has 10 arms, she's often seen in 2 mudras, and you were doing both in class this morning. Left hand palm face up on left thigh, right hand palm face forward in front of the right shoulder. The left hand is Varda mudra. Varda mudra is the mudra of giving and receiving. Give and receive, give and receive, give and receive, and have no difference between the two. Receive everything that comes to you with grace, give everything you have with grace, with fearlessness. Give and receive all with fearlessness. And then every once in a while, we'll see a little bit of a different depiction of the weapons. We might see a lightning bolt. The lightning bolt is representative of the power of Shakti, the energy of the universe. We might see a flame. We might see that she has a little vessel with a flame in it. And so that is the Agni. Agni is the god of fire, but Agni is also resident within Durga as the very essence of her own self. This woman right here, this beautiful pujari who brought us through a homa of fire yesterday, she opened the gate by way of fire for the Divine Mother to make herself known to us. Thank you for that. Let's see if I hit all my notes. And finally, a water pot. So she may also be seen with a water pot. And the water is the sign of divinity, the stream of consciousness, the flow of water. Any questions or reflections?
I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
I've also heard that Durga has been referred to as the fortress.
Yes.
What would be the meaning behind the fortress?
Durga as the fortress is that she is the one who does not allow ignorance. She is the one who does not allow violence. She is the one who does not allow these types of things. And so the fortress is that she protects and guards her children in that regard. It's very interesting, though, because somebody might then say, well, then how come bad things happen to us? Well, first of all, they're only bad things because that's your perception of the world. That's a whole nother conversation. But second of all, because she has given you the relentless gift of free will, and she will not violate that gift. So if you are behaving in a way that causes suffering, she will allow that because you have chosen that. That is your free will, and she has guaranteed that for you. But when you call her and say, Ma, I cannot do this anymore. I need the power to change. And you are sincere in your calling. She will put the fortress there. She will put the power there. She will be there. And she will bring an end to the suffering. Absolutely. Yeah. Any other questions or reflections? Gita Ma, would you like to say anything?
No, I feel full.
There. Absolutely. Wonderful. So then let's sit tall. We'll close the eyes. Take a nice breath in. A nice breath out. Draw the hands together in front of the heart. We'll chant Om Shri Durgaye Namaha 9 times, followed by Om. Om Shri Durgaye Namaha. 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 Jai Mata Di. Thank you all so much for being here today. So wonderful to hold space with each and every one of you. Brunch.